Welcome to the first lesson in Chapter 2 of Unit 1. Today we're going to talk about how to find the least common multiple. Your objectives for today: I will be able to find the multiples of any given number and to find the least common multiple of a given set of numbers. So first things first, we have to know what are multiples. Now, multiples and factors are completely different, so it's important that you pay close attention to what a multiple is and what a factor is. A multiple is a product of a given number and a non-zero number. So what I like to tell people is multiples are your count bys. So like when you count by 2 and you say 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, this is actually, so right here, this is 2 times 1. That's the first multiple of 2. And then 2 times 2 gives us 4. That's the second multiple. 2 times 3 gives us 6. That's the third multiple. So multiples are what you get when you multiply two numbers together. So multiples are your count bys, and they're when you multiply your numbers. Right, so then the least common multiple. Well, let's take a look at our context clues here. We have least, common, and multiple. We know what a multiple is. A multiple is the product of two numbers, or a set of products of two numbers. Common, when we say we have something in common, it means the same. And then least always means the smallest. So I would think that the least common multiple is the smallest multiple that two numbers have that is the same. Okay, the least common multiple by definition is the smallest multiple that two or more numbers have that is the same. Okay, so how are multiples and factors different? We're going to talk about factors a little bit later, but multiples are products of a given number and factors are quotients of a given number. For example, if you list the factors of 12, okay, you would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Okay, because these are all quotients, so 12 divided by 1 is 12, 12 divided by 2 is 6, 12 divided by 3 is 4, 12 divided by 4 is 3, 12 divided by 6 is 2, and 12 divided by 12 is 1. And then if you list the multiples of 12, those would be 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, and so on. There's actually a never-ending number or an infinite number of multiples, and there is a finite number of factors. What that means is there's only so many factors that a number has, and the number of multiples that a number can have never ends. Because we can multiply a number by any other number, we can't divide numbers by any other number and get a round answer or a non-remainder answer. All right, so there's lots of methods to finding the least common multiple, and I'm going to show you a couple of them here. You can choose which one you like the best. All I ask is that you do try both of them and then go from there. I don't care which one you use, just make sure to try both. My concern is that you can find the least common multiple and that you can apply finding the least common multiple to different problems. So the first method I'm going to show you is the list method. You list the multiples of the numbers. So we are going to find the LCM of 12 and 15. I always tell students to list the first the first 5 multiples. Okay, so the first 5 multiples of 12 are 12, 24, 36, 48, and 60. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 12 times 1, 12 times 2, 12 times 3, 12 times 4, 12 times 5. Then we're going to list the first 5 multiples of 15. We have 15, 30, 45, 60, and 75. Okay. Now, if you're struggling, I know that I'm really good with my multiples. I've practiced them a lot over the years, so I know these off the top of my head. If you don't, you can go off to the side and say, okay, 15 times 3, what was that again? 5 times 3 is 15. Carry the 1. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Oh yeah, 45. You can do this. That's not a problem. I don't expect you to have all of these memorized, but the more that you have memorized, the easier this method is. Okay, so then I start over here. Do they have 12 in common? No. Do they have 24 in common? No. Do they have 36 in common? No. Do they have 48 in common? No. Do they have 60 in common? Yes, because they have 60 in common, and that's the first number we got to. That is their least common multiple, otherwise known as the LCM. So the LCM of 12 and 15 would be 60. Right, so now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause and try and find the LCM of 6 and 8 by using the listing method. I gave you space in your notebook to do this. When you come back, we'll go over your answer. All right, so you would list the multiples of 6 and 8. So I get 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30, 8, 16, 24, 32, and 40. They don't have 6 in common, or 12, or 18, but they do have 24 in common. So you should have found that the LCM of 8 and 6 was 24. Okay, again, you'll have lots of time to practice this, so if you don't get it right off the bat, that's okay. And I'm going to show you another method that some of you might like better. All right, the ladder method. The ladder method does have a bit of a process to it, and you have to make sure that you know how to divide numbers evenly. So you have to make sure that when you divide, you're going to get a nice round answer, no remainders. So you have to practice your multiplication and division tables. So the first step is to write the numbers you want to find the LCM of in your ladder. So that's pretty simple. So if I want to find the LCM of 12 and 15, I put them in the first rung of my ladder. Okay, and in your notes, you should be writing this down. So you should also be writing down in your space available these little steps. So filling in the words, and then at the side, you're filling in the actual example. You're actually doing it. Your next step, find a factor that all the numbers can be divided by and divide. So what that means is I have 12 and 15, and I know that both 12 and 15 can be divided by 3. So I do that and I make the next rung on my ladder. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Moving on to the next step, and I apologize, I skipped a step here. You repeat steps 2 and 3, until you get to where you have 1 out here. Right? So 4 and 5, the only factor that they have in common is 1. And 4 divided by 1 is 4. 5 divided by 1 is 5. Now I move on to step 4. Step 4 is to multiply all of the outside numbers. And again, I just want you to make sure in your notes that you change this. This shouldn't be steps 3 and 4. This should be steps 2 and 3. All right, so you see how this makes an L down here? That's how I remember that this is the LCM method. I'm going to show you a ladder method with greatest common factor, and it's a little bit different, so just remember that this makes an L. So when we are multiplying all the outside numbers, we're multiplying all the outside numbers that are in the L, like LCM. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 1 times 4 times 5, and I get 60. Again, it matches the answer from the first problem that we did. That was why I wanted to show you this method, to show you that you get the same answer whether you use the listing method or the ladder method, but you have to use them correctly. You have to practice and you have to go slow. All right, so what I would like you to do is I would like you to find the LCM of 12, 9, and 3 using the ladder method. However, the one thing that I am going to tell you is that when you're doing the LCM of 3 numbers and you're using the ladder method, you can only do 2 numbers at a time. So you have to first find the LCM of 12 and 9, and then take the answer of that and put it with 3 and do the ladder method again. Right? I know that sounds a little bit difficult, but I'd rather have you try, come back, and if you didn't do it correctly, watch, and then complete your notes, and we'll move on. Go ahead and pause and try. All right, so I put 12 and 9 in my ladder. Both 12 and 9 can be divided by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 9 divided by 3 is 3. The only number that 4 and 3 can be divided by is 1. 4 divided by 1 is 4, and 3 divided by 1 is 3. I multiply all of the numbers that make up my L. Little loopy L there, but that's okay. 3 times 1 times 4 times 3, so this gives me 3 times 4 times 3. 3 times 4 is 12, times 3 gives me 36. Now, I'm not done yet because I still have to multiply, or I still have to put 36 and 3 in the ladder. 36 and 3 can both be divided by 3. 36 divided by 3 is 12. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And, well, you can only divide 1 by 1, so that's the only factor that they have in common. So we pull out those last 2. We multiply all of the numbers inside here. And I'm just going to go ahead and say, okay, when I multiply by 1, it gives me the same number. So I'm just going to eliminate the 1s and just do 3 times 12. 3 times 12 gives me 36. So you should have come up with an answer of 36. If you did not, that's okay. I want you to go back and watch this again and at least pause and write it down correctly so that way when you're working on the problems in class, you have something to reference if you're struggling. All right, so where would we apply this in real life? So I kind of went with the spaceship theme here and went with 2 alarms on the spaceship are beeping. One alarm beeps every 4 seconds and the other alarm beeps every 6 seconds. If the alarms beep at the same time, how many more seconds will it be before they beep at the same time again? All right, so what this is saying is every 4 seconds the first one beeps. So it beeps at 4 seconds, it beeps at 8 seconds, it beeps at 12 seconds. If you notice, we're listing the multiples here. Same thing with 6. It beeps at 6, 12, 18, so on and so forth. So now, a lot of people will say, oh, the answer is 12. Well, that's the first time that they beep together. So how many more seconds will it be before they beep at the same time again? So if 12 is the least common multiple, it'll be another 12 seconds before they beep together again. Because that's the smallest number that they have in common. So that's the smallest amount of time in between beeps that they would beep the same. All right, so these are the problems that I would like you to try on your own. Now you'll notice here that I'm asking you to find the LCM of 4, 8, and 14. You can use whatever method you want. I would suggest practicing with the more difficult method, or if you want to just stick with a method that you know works well for you, that's fine as well. But this is one problem that I would like you to try, and you will have this on your quiz on Edmodo. And then I'd also like you to solve this problem. After every 12th spacewalk, the astronauts must sterilize their spacesuit. After every 20th spacewalk, the astronauts must replace their visor. After what spacewalk would the astronauts need to do both? So you need to figure out when they have to replace both the visor and sterilize the spacesuit. This will also be on your quiz on Edmodo. As always, if you have any questions, please make sure to post them to Edmodo so we can go over them in class tomorrow.